What up, Marsh Pod? First of the new format, coming at you now 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Our Monday pods are going to be a little bit of weekend reaction, and then a look ahead, right? What do we have in store for us in the future? I think the timing is going to work out pretty well, especially as we get later into the season. I believe that we're going to have a lot of games on Saturday that mean something. So you'll have, obviously, the SimWorld podcast network will produce some good content on Sundays with Around the Table. But we'll come at you with Monday with some early takes. And then we'll be able to look ahead, right? Look at the week ahead versus these sporadic, almost, when it goes up on Tuesday, and that's typically the first day of action in SimWorld Hoops, the reaction is almost instantly outdated. So this will be a good kind of look ahead, and then Wednesday we'll get that instant reaction for everything that happened on Tuesday. So first, quick weekend, we had, I think the most surprising game was Oceania falling to the North. The kiss of death working in reverse is now 1-0. So, I mean, it's either going to work or it's not. We're going to find out. And spoiler alert, the North plays on Tuesday, so we'll get to that. But an incredibly bad loss from Oceania. Just, you had an opportunity to move to 9-11. They were a game out of the 8 seed. You can't lose that game. You cannot lose. There's two teams right now that teams can't lose to. It's the North and it's SimWorld Middle East. Two worst teams in the league. They're the two teams, I think you mix Africa into that group, that just haven't been good, unfortunately, for any number of reasons. The North doesn't have a head coach right now. They haven't had a head coach. They lost their best player. Marcus Leifat has not been their best player. But this was a game for Oceania. You couldn't afford to lose. And they did. And this continues to point home the point we've been making, or bring home the point we've been making all season, is that the middle class of SimWorld Hoops is so frustratingly inconsistent to watch, because they'll have big games, and at least we've reached a point where there's not quite as much chatter after every single game. Like some of these teams in that 2 games under 500 range, where they'd win a game against a good opponent, and then they'd start talking. And then they lose a game like this, and you're like, okay, well, you got to be one of the two, man. You're either a good basketball team or you're not. And that's what the middle class is they're not good, but they're not bad. Oceania, though, you have to win this game, but this is why they sit here. Because Oceania had that little stretch. They won, I think, 5 of 6, so they had a nice stretch middle of, I want to say it was February. Or no, it wouldn't have been February, probably March. And they come out and they say, hey, check this out. We're rolling. And then people start looking and say, okay, you slow start, starting to put it together. And then what? They fall apart again. So it's just so maddeningly inconsistent to watch. This was a win they had to get. What happened positively for the North was Alex Rodriguez. Alex Rodriguez was awesome. Hit a lot of big shots early, and then down the stretch, this is what they need, and this is where not having a coach, I think, I'm not pretending to know what's going on in that locker room, but having a coach for a team like this, where they entered with a pretty clear-cut number one in Marcus Leifat. He's not their number one guy, and he probably shouldn't be getting nearly as many touches as he is, and there should be more touches going to Alex Rodriguez. But without a coach in place, they don't have the authoritative figure to say, this is what we're running. And you're kind of left with guys that are 16, 17 years old to course correct themselves. Leifat entered with this wide open runway this season. And again, I'm not reporting anything that's going on in that locker room, but to think that he's not sitting there saying, no, I should be getting these touches, I should be getting these end-of-game touches, end-of-game shots, when the rest of the roster probably looks around and says, well, Alex is probably the better option. That's difficult to do, because late Marcus is the team captain. And if there's any uneasiness, any pulling of the torch, That's not easy to take away from the guy that's been here already. And Saturday against Oceania, it didn't look like that. Rodriguez was allowed to just ISO. He was allowed to go to work, and he was awesome. He was phenomenal. He hit 3 straight threes over the course of late third, early fourth quarter that kind of spelled away the rally that the North was coming on, that Oceania was coming up with. He's really good, and he deserves to get more touches like the ones that he got on Saturday, but they need a coach in place to allow that to happen. I'm not predicting a run from the North. Their mountain is massively high to climb, but Saturday was a sign of life, and as we look ahead, Rodriguez has positioned himself not only this season, but I think he's positioned himself as a guy that recruits should look at and say, that's not a bad guy to play with. You know, you see everything that he's talking about in public. He seems to be a guy with his head on his shoulders in a very difficult situation, just striving for himself and the team to get better. That's not nothing, and I imagine recruits are going to take account of that. Looking ahead, 2 broadcasted games on Tuesday. We've got Heartland Zombie Stars hosting the Rocky Mountain Monsters. I think that's an exciting game. I think both of the broadcast games are 2 of the 3 really great ones. The other ones worth mentioning, we got Best Coast and Cascadia. That should be fun in California. And then Gotham 5 visits Latin America. But Rocky's been rolling. It's nice to see them playing consistently. Heartland is a tough matchup for them just because of the environment that they're walking into. Let's not forget, this is a Riot House that is not easy to play in. Literally bit an opponent early in the season, opening night. So that'll be a tall task for them, but they've started to look good at least. And Justin Bell, now Player of the Week. What's always been the question, does a top team have a guy that you can rely on? I had thought it was Ireland early for Rocky Mountain. It is not. It is Justin Bell. He's proving that. They could go lay an egg. I don't care. He's been awesome for them. And then the second game on the broadcast, Raining Trays, Showtime. It's a big opportunity for Showtime. They've got to come out. They haven't been elite for a super long stretch of any point in this season, but they haven't been bad either. They're like an upper middle class team right now in SimWorld Hoops with the potential. They're sitting on some stock options that could make them a lot of money. But right now, it's just like Showtime is like a manager at a really good company, right? Paycheck is pretty hefty. 401k is getting filled up. It's a good team. It's a good financial position. It's not great. It's a 1 car per parent, right? It's a 2-car household. You know, maybe one of them's a higher end SUV. Maybe it's a new SUV. Maybe they just went out. They got a brand new Toyota 2022. It's a good car. It's not flashy, right? It's not a Porsche. It's not a Beamer. It's not a Range Rover, but it's a good car, man. It's a good car. Kids are rocking. 2-kid, 4-person household. It's in good shape. They got the SUV. They got a sedan. It's probably like a 2019. It's a good financial position. But one of the parents is sitting on like some inheritance money that could come due. They got like an early stock option. They invested in this company that could kind of pop off, but they're not sure yet. If it does, they become insanely well off. It's like a second cousin. They got in on the ground floor of their car wash chain, and that chain is starting to kind of like do good things. And if they decide to sell, big money coming in. That's Showtime. Awfully long analogy, but that's Showtime. Bronny James is that stock option. If he pops off, this is an elite team. But every other piece of that puzzle needs to add up for Showtime. It hasn't been all in. They've been really good, but they haven't been elite. And they got to be a good Raining Trays team to kind of prove that. They'll have their hands full, but it'll be an exciting second watch. All right, we're back. Like we said, we're going to be back on Wednesday in the pod, on the broadcast on Tuesday, so tune in. And Europe's going to beat the North. Europe's going to beat the North. All right, we'll talk to you then.